Today I'm going to be reviewing the Ryobi One Plus 18 volt 18 gauge brad nailer and asking that question that we all have, which is, do you really need one? This is the Ryobi R18GN18 brad nailer, which means it fires these really small, thin brad nails for like finishing work, 18 gauge. Now, 18 gauge is about 1.2 millimeters in width. And you have to remember 18 gauge is actually smaller than 16 gauge. It's all round the wrong way and it's all old fashioned. All you have to remember is 1.2 millimeters. And it fires these in lengths of anywhere between 15 millimeters and 2 inches, which is plenty at both ends of the spectrum. I've never really felt the need to use anything smaller or anything bigger. So let's have a look at the gun itself. Now, these cordless nail guns, irrespective of make, are all generally set up in the same way. There's the dangerous end with the tip at the bottom, and just above it you end up with the magazine that opens with a bit of a clip. Now, when you feed these sort of nails in, they always go tip at the bottom, irrespective of what length they are. You always put them at the bottom and just move them forward. Then it just closes with a bit of a click. Let me just take those out because I'll be fiddling around with the tip now. So it can't fire unless that tip is depressed. And don't worry, I haven't got a battery in it at the moment, so it's not going to do anything anyway. So the tip needs to be depressed and the gun needs to be turned on, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Now, I've used this quite a lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I've not had any jams. But if you do get a jam, this front plate just pulls forward and that opens that whole tip mechanism. So if you do get anything in there that's now jammed, you can take all that out, as long as you've taken the battery off first, of course. And that just goes back in there and then clips back into place. There's 2 things that you can adjust on this nail gun. The first one is the depth that the nail fires into, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. And I've used this quite a lot, and I would say it's pretty accurate and really easy to adjust finely. The other thing that you can adjust is on the back here is a pressure setting. Now, this is a little bit confusing because in the instructions it will tell you that this increases and decreases the pressure in the gun. However, to be honest with you, it's not made any difference to me at all. So generally, I've just kept it on the sort of mid setting. The other thing that it's got, which is handy, is a belt clip, which I've used a few times, and it's got a light on the front. And that light also tells you whether the machine is on or off. So let's pop a battery in and I'll show you how to turn it on. Now, there's 2 ways of actually turning it on. The first way is to depress the head. So if I just push the head, then you can see that light comes on. The other way of turning it on is that there's a second button here, not the main trigger, but there's a second button that you'd use with your middle finger that also turns it on. Now, I thought originally that that might be a bump fire button, but it's not. This nail gun cannot bump fire. It's only single shot only. So that button in there also turns it on. So if I just press that, you can see the light come on and it's ready for action. And that is about everything I need to tell you about the function of this gun. It just turns off automatically after sort of 30 seconds. So there's no specific on and off button. And really, there's nothing else to talk about other than let's shoot a few nails and I'll show you how it performs. This nailer bare without any batteries is currently retailing on Amazon for £160. You can also buy it in B&Q for a little bit more, or on the Ryobi website itself for a lot more. It's over £200 on the Ryobi website. So if you're interested in buying one of these, definitely go to Amazon. I'll put an Amazon link in the description below. The one thing I found it doesn't do is it doesn't leave a mark other than for the nail, because it's got this little rubberized tip here that actually protects the wood. And now if that wears out or you do lose it, what's a little nice feature is that they've actually supplied you with a second one that sits on the back there. One thing I do like about this is the way that you can actually put it down and it doesn't fall over. What you can't do is actually balance it on the battery. It's a little bit front heavy to sit on the battery. The other thing the magazine has got is it's got a couple of slots here that tells you when you're starting to run low on nails. So I've only got a few left in here. Let's see if I can demonstrate what I mean. You can start seeing that yellow section come through that window there, and that tells you you're about to run out of nails. Okay, which I have. Once you're down to only a couple of nails, it won't let you fire anymore until you put some more in. Like all of these cordless nailers, this version is reasonably heavy at just under 2.5 kilograms, and that's without the battery. So it does make it quite a heavy machine when you're using it for a prolonged period. So that's a little bit of a negative point because it is quite bulky and quite heavy. I'm not saying it's any worse than the other ones on the market, but to lug something this around like this all day is quite chunky. The only thing I can compare it with is my shop air nailer, which is obviously run off of a compressor. Now the great thing about this is how light it is. There's hardly anything to it, and it must be maybe a quarter of the weight, and it just works really well. I mean, this is cheap, other than the fact that you do need a compressor. However, I suppose one of the drawbacks is this. Now, obviously, if you're working in a workshop and you can set this up and you're just working in one place, I would say that this is more convenient. It's lighter, you can just put it on the bench and it's there when you want it. However, that is, I suppose, the plus side of a gun like this, that it is so portable and you don't need any cables or wires or hoses or whatever. You can just take it where you want, which leads me on to what I've been doing with it for the last few weeks. So let's have a look at some real world work rather than just shooting nails into the workbench. Straight out the box, I started making some boxes and some hangers for my French cleat system, which it performed okay on. I was changing nails nearly every few shots, depending on the thickness of the ply and the timber that I was using. So actually changing nails I think is really, really quick and just works really quite nicely. According to Ryobi, this will shoot 1900 50mm long brad nails on a full charge of a 5 amp hour battery, which wouldn't surprise me at all because I've not run out of battery while I've been using this at all, and I've shot quite a few hundred. Using it on a workbench like this, it would have been just as easy to use my lightweight air nailer. So this isn't really the environment where this nailer excels. What I have been using this nailer on mostly is my walk-in wardrobe project. And this is where it really excels. The whole idea of not having a cable or a hose and being able to take it into any room in the house and just use it at a moment's notice is what this nailer is really designed for. Just fixing things like architrave or door stops is far more accurate with a nailer than by hand, because you can position the piece perfectly and then let the nail gun do the work, rather than then trying to get a nail and a hammer into it. This not only speeds up the operation, but it actually means that you end up with a better quality job. And as this 4 amp hour battery just shoots literally thousands of nails, it's not like I'm thinking that I even need to take another battery with me. In an environment like this, as long as you've got a pocket full of nails, then you're pretty much set for the whole day. And I think that's where this nailer excels and comes into its own compared to something that obviously comes with a cable. It's so versatile when you're getting into tight spaces and you're moving around and you're doing work around the house, that actually you forget that it's over 2.5 kilograms in weight and you just use it. This is great to use in a workshop, but this hose and obviously the compressor that's on the other end really stops you using it around the house. So this is workshop only. And that's where I think really this nailer comes in. It's great for your second fix items. So all your architraves and skirtings and your door stops and your bits and pieces, to have this in your toolbox for those items, I think is, well, I found it really useful. And I must say, I've really appreciated having this over the last few weeks, and it has sped up all those sort of second fix items that I've been trying to finish on the project upstairs. Which brings me on to the question that I posed right at the beginning of this video, which is, should you go and invest in your own cordless brad nailer? I would say, as long as you've got more than, let's say, a door to fix and you can afford it, absolutely go and invest in one of these. You'll use it far more than you think. It'll really speed up your work, and you'll find that you'll get higher quality and you'll get trim to fix better because you can actually hold it while this does the work rather than trying to use a hammer and nail. Whether you should invest in the Ryobi or not, well, all I can say is this has done everything that I've wanted it to do for me recently, and it's just worked really well without any sort of hiccups. So I would say this is quite a good machine. However, you're going to need to wait until I do some comparisons from this on other budget machines. Coming very soon. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it's helped you make your mind up whether you should invest in a bit of a nail gun. I will see you next time.